This video is brought to you by Function of Beauty, but more on that in a bit. So we have a very exciting endeavor happening in the workroom today, and that is the arrival of a brand new, old, potential new sewing machine recruit. This one is particularly exciting because this is a hand-turned chain stitch machine, which if you know some stuff about sewing machines, you will know that the chain stitch kind of preceded the lock stitch, which is when you've got a bobbin on the bottom and a thread on the top. This one only has thread on the top. There's no bobbin. It just works via a chain stitch. These machines, amongst mass manufactured domestic machines, were the more prevalent brand of sewing machine, type of sewing machine, flavor of sewing machine that were available to consumers between about 1850, when they first started to appear on the mass manufacture consumer market, up through about the 1870s. I'm so excited to have a look at an actual chain stitch machine, IRL, which I have not done before, and to try it out for myself and to see how it works. This machine was very kindly sent to me from a lovely gentleman who I did a little project with a while back. Well, his mother had it, and he very, very kindly offered to send it to me from Australia. So this is a very exciting situation, and I'm so grateful to Michael and Harriet, to whom this entire video and all the subsequent preceding shenanigans are hereby dedicated to. Let's get to opening all of this fun stuff. So we have the original manuals, which is so cool. It looks like it's an automatic. Wilcox and Gibbs, the first machines that they put out, sort of mass manufacture. It's nice to know that it says right here, it's the automatic version, which means it's slightly later. It is still hand turned, so it is still probably pre-1880s. It's probably about 1870-ish, but this is so cool. Nothing is left to the judgment of the operator, no winding of bobbins, no tightening of tensions, etc., etc. Yet, perfect work is assured. The machine is strictly noiseless and so light that ladies in delicate health can work it without injury. Oh, fun. They've crossed out the price of the original price of £5, 15 shillings, 6pence, and handwritten in pounds, £8, 13 shillings, 6pence. Oh my god, these are extra machine needles. That's so useful. There's so many in here. Wow. Oh, and they're all still sharp. Wow, this is so cool. This is so lucky. This, I think, is an attachment for quilters, but these are little hooks that will help to thread the machine. I think these are shells. I'm not sure that this is supposed to be in here. 'Tis a mystery. It does appear to have tiny holes in the top, which would lead me to believe it's some sort of marking tool, and you're supposed to put wax or chalk in here, but it's been used for other purposes. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Wow. So it is indeed a chain stitch machine. You can see this straight away. Just under here, there should be a serial number, which there is. A268467. So according to the database that I'm looking at, this says it was manufactured in 1876. Approximately 12,700 machines were produced from Wilcox and Gibbs that year. That's so cool, and that doesn't seem like that many. Oh my god, they've got a little lever on the bottom here where you can just scroll up how many stitches per inch you want. 16, 18, what's the most? 30 stitches per inch. That's so many. That is so many. Oh, I'm so curious to see what we can do with this. So both of the antique sewing machines that I have and that I use in my reconstruction work are, well, they're both from the 1890s, but they're both lock stitch machines. One works with hand turning, like this one. That one is from 1891. And then I've got a treadle machine, which is from 1892, which works by foot powering. This is a hand turn machine. It is 20 years older than both of the antique machines that I already have. So I'm feeling tentatively confident that this is going to be a lot easier to just be working straight out of the package, if you will, which might be a little bit ambitious to think. Okay, first things first, We need to get her undustified, and we need some oil. I love the process of cleaning and oiling machines because you get to know them, especially these antique machines that have all the parts exposed. You get to know the machine really intimately. It's so cool. It's so cool how these things work. Like, wow, I had no idea there were this many little intricate pieces and parts and moving bits that interlock with different things. Also, a lot of places for dust to get trapped. You know how dust is mostly just dead skin particles? I wonder how many hundreds of years of human I am inhaling right now. So we are all cleaned and oiled, and the first thing that I'm noticing is that we're probably going to need a little bit of adjustment on the belt here, which I'm a bit nervous about because it's a very old belt. This one has got a brass ferrule, I think is how it's pronounced. I don't know. The manual gives instructions on how to adjust this. However, the instructions say to unscrew it and then to put it back to shorten it. I'm not entirely 1000% certain how that works. Ah, good, it's coming out. Oh, cool. Oh, no, it didn't come out, it just sort of broke. But that's fine because we need to cut it anyway. So that took a lot longer than expected. It took a lot of warm water and soaking the leather. The leather belt is really, really quite rotted, and unfortunately we've lost our second side as well, which means that the belt is now too short for the machine. It's not the greatest loss because this belt is extremely brittle. So I'm going to have to replace the belt. That is not the biggest deal in the world. You can get replacements for these quite easily, and then we shall go from there. For now, this will at least give us a demonstration. So the first thing we have to do is put our thread on. So there's a little hole right here that this just snaps into here. This comes out and goes through. There's a hook and a hole. This is where our little hooks come in very handy because we can just sort of come through here and just use that to pull that through very easily. This then comes around to, this is this automatic tension disc thing. This can then come through this hole here and then through the next little arch down here. Then we have a little hook thing up here which can just snap straight into place. And then down the next hole. And then finally thread the needle. Cool, and we are all finished right now because there is no bobbin to wind. How exciting. I am back. I have an actual real drive belt this time. I'm determined to make this work. So first thing is first, we are changing our thread. This one is a very old thread. I will say it is so very nice not to have to worry about threading bobbins and winding bobbins and running out of thread on bobbins. It was really cool opening up this front bit here and exploring how that mechanism works. I feel like I sort of understand in theory but didn't quite picture it in practice, but underneath the needle, effectively, it's got a little rotating hook system. So the hook pulls the thread down and creates a loop and just sort of holds it there so that the needle comes back down and picks up that loop again by the time that hook finishes circling around. And that way you sort of create that effect of pinning the top thread down to the bottom with an underside thread, but only with one thread. It's really cool. Oh, it's so smooth and it's so quiet. This was one of the big advertising points of this machine, was that it is quiet. Oh, there's a little stitch. Wow, you really don't need to backstitch at all. Wow, is this thread very securely in here. This is not going anywhere, this seam. Oh my goodness, for an antique machine, this stitches absolutely stunningly. There are no flaws, no imperfections in the stitching. Every once in a while on my log stitch machines, I'll get, you know, a stitch gets skipped or something, but wow, this is absolutely gorgeous. The underside, and here is where it gets its name as the chain stitch. It looks like a tiny little chain. You can see where the thread is making loops and then pulling itself back up through to the top. The thread is definitely a lot bulkier. Okay, we are doing stitch length. Let's see what 20 looks like. This is, again, going from 13 to 20, and we still have 10 more stitches per inch that we can cram into 1 inch. That is so fine. Oh my God, they're tiny. And it's definitely taking a lot longer to do, as expected. I have to say, the tiniest stitch length is very impressive, but it is not my favorite. It becomes more apparent on the underside that the smaller stitch lengths are not quite as neat as the nice, beautiful, beautiful long stitches. Using the hand-turned chain stitch machine is remarkably different from, well, the treadle machine obviously, but also the hand-turned block stitch machine that I have. What I really notice is that those other two machines from the 1890s, they're very big, especially the treadle machine obviously, because that is basically a piece of furniture. But even the hand-turned block stitch machine it's a thing. It's heavy, it's large, it takes up a great amount of table space. This chain stitch machine is really interesting because it doesn't feel like a machine. It feels like a tool. It feels like something that you'd have sitting on the side of your table, like a pair of shears. It's interesting to think how from 1876 to 1891 and 92, the machines actually get bigger, which is really interesting to think about from today's perspective, where our technology tends to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Granted, the technology of the sewing machine does get a bit more complex by the end of the century. You do have the dual action of the lock stitch, so you have the bobbin underneath and all the mechanisms that have to come with that. It's very interesting to think how the sewing machine went from this tiny little tool that sort of sits on the side of your table to this thing, this presence, as it becomes more prevalent within the essential process of garment making, which is really interesting. The sewing machine actually very significantly impacts fashion throughout the later part of the 19th century. Understandably, of course, because it makes the stitching process just 10 times faster. And so they are filling that time that you would typically be spending doing the structural seams of the actual foundation garment, and they just cover everything in ruffles, in pleats, in all this intricate detail you see through the late 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, 1880s as you get into the bustle period. I mean, it would have taken ages and ages to do by hand in the previous centuries. Because people have access to faster sewing methods, they are adding more and more and more detail to the dresses. You start to see all manner of parts of dresses just unashamedly being machine sewn because it's novel, it's new, people can do it, so therefore you are going to do it by machine. On the flip side of that, in roundabouts the 1890s up through the Edwardian period, the pendulum starts to swing the other way. It has by now been about 30, 40 years since the sewing machine was widely introduced to the public, and the novelty of machine sewing has worn off a bit. there starts to be reintroduced an appreciation for the labor involved in handwork. So you start to see a bit more handwork start to be introduced in the garment construction as well as in the finishing. You can also see a greater prevalence of embroidery and beading and braid trimming work. Handwork, incidentally, becomes more of a thing to show off in your garments because, yes, we have sewing machines now, we get it. But do you guys remember hand sewing? Because that took a long time. Let me show this off. I do have a very special fondness for this machine sort of dawning. The way this machine stitches, it's so regular and it's so even. It is so much less complex than the lock stitch machines, which I very much appreciate. So I will be very interested to do a bit of experimenting in how the workflow of the chain stitch machine compares to the lock stitch machines, because at this point, you know, I speak their language, we get each other, we know each other. Likewise, we know one another's temperaments. So I will be very interested to learn this friend here. So thank you very much for joining me on this little deep dive adventure into pre-1890s sewing. I suppose this means I shall at one point have to start a little bustle gown project. So stay tuned for future sewing and reconstruction endeavors, and I shall see you anon. This video has been brought to you by Function of Beauty, purveyors of personalized hair care products tailored to meet your unique hair care needs. I have been treating my own protein fibers with these products for nearly 2 years now, and while I can't say how suitable it is for weaving into cloth, I can at least confirm that it has done wondrous great things for the purposes of decorating my head. 2 of my own personal goal selections in the last year have been lengthening and strengthening, though I might need to rethink the latter one of those goals considering the quantity of hair I have extracted in the last 6 months alone. But needless to say, the results have been overwhelmingly satisfying. Every ingredient is extensively tested on voluntary participants, never on animals, and with no parabens or sulfates. These products are 100% vegan and cruelty-free, so I can be sure that these products are well-performing and safe to use. You even get to choose your own color and scent. You can get 20% off your first 16-ounce custom set when you click my link and subscribe. You can also become a member to get lots of exclusive perks, including free shipping.